tell us how you met.
Well, and how we met was I was dating her best friend from college. And we was roommating out in the valley with a friend of ours. And we each had our own separate rooms. She brought your mom home here to do schoolwork. And, you know, as crazy as I am sometimes, I walked in and just blurted out, well, you can come and keep me company tonight. And I broke up with her best friend, and we've been together ever since. And it's been 33 years.
So a couple of years ago, I was listening to one of my favorite artists. His name is NF, and he has a song called How Could You Leave Us? And it's a song about his mom, who was addicted to pills, and she died when he was a teenager. In this song, he's just crying out, saying, we needed you, how could you leave us? And I was driving down the road thinking about my own story, and I thought, wow, you didn't die that day, but it kind of feels like you did. And so I wrote this song, Bittersweet 16, about my 16th birthday when my mom attempted suicide and how that affected me, how that affected my family. But what was interesting to me was as I went back and walked around in that memory and looked around, I couldn't see my brother anywhere in it. I saw myself standing in the front yard, paralyzed with fear. I saw my dad jumping into action and running through the front door to get to my mom. And in the memory, I saw my mom there in bed, but I couldn't see my brother at all. And I couldn't remember where he was and where he went and who took care of him. And it just got me thinking about this experience, not just from my perspective, but from the perspective of my entire family. And so I thought, you know, wouldn't it be cool if we would be able to be brave enough to sit down together in front of the camera and tell this story from each of our perspectives. And so I asked them, and they said, yeah, we'll do that.
So you had to go and raise a songwriter. They always say Taylor Swift writes about her ex-boyfriends, you know. I guess us country singers write about our
families.
Yeah.
They say a picture's worth 1,000 words, but sometimes a picture doesn't tell the whole truth.
I came home drunk, and that's when you decided to... I came home drunk, and she says, honey, I got something to tell you. And I go, what? She says, I'm pregnant. And I says, you're effing lying. And I passed out on her. And I woke up the next morning going, all reality just hit.
You were born in October 6th, and my grandma was still alive. I was told that from my parents that you were illegitimate because we weren't married. And to make you true or whatever in God's eyes, we had to get married. So in November 21st, we got married, and you sat on Grandma's lap, and you were passed all around, and
everybody adored you.
So I think it's interesting how we remember our stories, because many times we remember it a little different than it actually happened, especially when it comes to our childhoods. And somewhere along down the line over the years, I came to believe a slightly altered version of my story and how my parents met. And for some reason, I understood that they met at a party, got pregnant with me that night, got married a month after I was born. And so that it was kind of my fault, I guess, that maybe my mom and dad had these dreams, but then because of me, they couldn't follow them and they had to do this instead. And that's when the enemy was able to enter my story and convince me of things like you're an accident, you're a mistake, you're a burden, everyone wishes you would just go away. And it's actually interesting to hear my brother talk about how he always saw me as the golden child, never knowing that what I felt on the inside was the total opposite.
They thought you were the golden child, and I wasn't. So that's why I just started getting really depressed and stuff, and hated my life because I was always either getting in trouble, because they were like, oh, she never, did anything like this. So I was either getting in trouble or not doing good in class.
My parents met, they actually just liked each other for each other. They lived together for a whole year before I was born. it changed absolutely everything about the way I saw my story. And I'm so grateful that I have chosen to go back into my story and let God retell the parts of it that were inaccurate. My hope is that as we choose to go somewhere that was really hard, that it would be an example to other families, and it would be permission to other families. You can do this. You can go there. You can take that stuff and pull it out from under the rug, and you can talk about the ways that it's been tripping you up.
When we found out that she was pregnant with Brandon, she cried all the way home. We can't afford another one. We can't afford another one. I go, we made it through one. We'll make it to the second one.
My mom did the best she could, but she had mental health issues too. So it was just kind of, poof, you've got a kid, you got to learn how to take care of him.
Life was going great there the first 5 years of our marriage anyway, because she had helped me I had a load, I had to go to Seattle. This is when it all started coming out, was she helped me make my bed in my semi and stuff, and everything seemed fine. I get to Seattle, I call home to see how things are going, and my neighbor across the street answers the phone, says, dude, your wife's been taken to the hospital by the cops, and I've got your kids. She was talking suicide, and I went, what?
So that would have been like 10 years prior to, because we were just little
Right.
at that point when it all started.
Yeah. So I made it from Seattle to my home doorstep, 3 hours flat from Seattle. I'm sitting there she's in the hospital. I'm sitting there holding, I think we had both kids at the time. Mm-hmm. I'm holding them both, one in each arm, going, what am I going to do now? Mm-hmm. I was like lost.
I can't trust the company I keep, especially because it's usually just me. But the war is real and the blood is red. The battle cries rain out in my head.
Then I'm sitting at the house and I'm looking at these things, and I'm both in my arms going, just the three of us. What should I feed y'all for dinner now?
That day, I just felt like everybody was against me, and I don't know, something about if I had to leave the world that I wasn't going to leave without you two. So we just all go down as a pack.
How do you escape when the enemy's in the mirror? So I take the pills and I swallow my fear, just trying to keep up, but life takes its toll. I do just about anything not to lose control.
She was in there for, I want to say 2 weeks.
And then I got released, and it was around Christmas, so we went and got a Christmas tree, came home, decorated it. I kind of felt kind of numb, like, okay, this is the way it's got to be.
Medicine made you feel numb?
In the beginning, yeah.
Then I think we ended up putting her back in there one more time for a week. She ended up going right, yeah, because the holidays, she got really bad. Every holiday. She got really bad. She got really depressed. Especially if the whole family wasn't together. It was like, oh, you guys lived. I mean, you guys was like going through your school thing, that kind of stuff. It was like, oh, I hope we get this family thing figured out.
I can fly higher than most, but the good times are shadowed by the lowest of lows. I can smell it coming like a breath of sulfur. I'm plucked from the sky by the mouth of a vulture. They say it's a choice and I should just rise up. So I fake a smile and embrace the numb.
I had friends of mine that said, man, you need to leave this crazy woman. And I go, dude, I got too much invested. I'm not just going to leave her. I says, if she commits suicide because I leave, I'm going to feel guilty. And I said, these are my kids. This is my kids' mom, and I'm not leaving them. So I actually lost friends over that, which I didn't care.
It keeps me stable, keeps me alive. But I'm out on this cable, I'm dangling my wire. Am I kidding? Can I really call this living? Oh, I just call it getting by. I just call it getting by.
So you started on medication after the first hospitalization?
Mm-hmm.
And what was that like?
They kept me stable, so I kept taking them.
Mm-hmm.
And still to this day.
Yeah. Well, I know on my 16th birthday you started taking the ones that are really working. Did you start taking any medication when we were little, when it all first started?
I think I was, yeah.
Yeah. That was when I got the restraining order. And I actually went as far as, I didn't feel convinced enough that she is really wanting the help that she needed.
Mm-hmm.
So I went as far as filing divorce papers and had her served at the same time we went to court for the restraining order.
So at that time, was it kind of hard to come to terms with what might be going on, like inside of you?
Well, yeah, and I was like bouncing house to house. I went to my cousin's house and stayed there for a little bit because I didn't think I could go back home. And then he said, yeah, you can have the house, but not me or the kids.
That had to be lonely.
Yeah.
And that had to be really hard to draw a healthy boundary to protect your kids.
It was the hardest thing I had to do was keep your kids away from their mother. I mean...
To give space to get healthy.
Yeah. You know, because you kids were actually asking me why you couldn't see your mother. And I was like, what do I tell them?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, except for she needs help.
That was so brave.
You put a cake in the oven at one end of the house. Then you walk to the bedroom where you passed out. Now the cake's on fire as we pull into the drive. Smoke pours out as Daddy runs inside. And I stand in the street and my hands, they shake. And there ain't gonna be any birthday cake.
I remember like we were going to the mall or whatever, I think it was, and they were arguing and stuff about the money and, you know, what you wanted and how much it was going to cost and everything. And then just ended up going back to the house and then dropping mother off. And then we went back out, and then kind of pretty scratchy after that.
I went and made you a cake. I took you and Brandon out, and it was just the three of us. We went out to the mall. I was going to buy you your shoes you wanted. And he said, absolutely not. I'm not paying $100 for a pair of shoes. Yeah, but this is her birthday, and this is the shoes that she wants. He says, no, it's not happening. And then we came home, and I put the cake in, made the cake, put it in. He said he was going to take you out and get you something, but not your $100 pair of shoes. And I said, fine. I'll just stay here.
When I asked her if she wanted to go, she said, no, I just want to rest. And so something told me at the mall, we went back to the mall, I kept calling and she wouldn't answer. And so something told me that there was something wrong. And we made it from the mall back to our home in like 7 minutes. And I instantly said there was something wrong because looking through the windows, all I was seeing was smoke. So I told you to holler for you guys to stay outside.
Well, you didn't die that day. It feels like you did. Oh, it feels like you did. You're still alive, they say, but you don't want to
So I went running in there. I went and opened the door. I got hit full of smoke in the face. Our poor dog was standing there going with his tongue out going, let me out of here. I went running in the kitchen, noticed that she had something in the oven. The stove, top of the stove was black, almost caught fire.
You took a bottle of pills to take your life. Guess you couldn't bring yourself to celebrate mine. 5 minutes later and you've been gone for sure. First thought in my head was I wish we were. And I hated myself for thinking that way. Think I still hate myself to this very day. 'Cause I know that you're sick, and I know I should forgive, but I don't know how to let this anger out.
Got that all taken care of, went running into the bedroom in the smoke trying to find her. She's been passed out. Started yelling to call the paramedics. Got them on their way. They ended up taking her to the hospital. They give her some chocolate. They was gonna pump her some, but they gave her some chocolate stuff to drink, charcoal. And that instantly caused her to throw up, so then she was fine.
Was it so bad being my mom? Was it so bad you had to make it stop?
Didn't they put you back in the hospital for a little bit?
I went to respite care then.
Oh yeah, they took her to respite care because I told them I wasn't bringing her home until we figured something out. I didn't feel comfortable.
And like the lyrics in the song, you didn't want to be my mom anymore. And that wasn't necessarily true. The part that was true is you didn't think you could be the mom that I deserved, and that was exactly it. I thought, I can't get you your shoes you wanted. There's other things that you wanted that I could never get you.
Well, I'm older now, I know it's not about me or my brother. You had things to figure out. I believe that I ruined your life, that you didn't want to be a mother or wife, but you were locked in your room, pills in your palm, thinking that I deserved a better mom.
One of the things that happens for so many of us when we go through trauma is that we believe a lot of lies about ourselves, and that we do have this enemy who would want us to believe that we're unwanted. Sounds like you had a lot of those voices saying that you were unwanted, or that we're a burden to people, or that we're not good enough, or that everyone loves my sister more. And when we start believing those, how you said it doesn't just affect us, but it affects others around us. And so for me, it totally hardened me, and I believed the lies, which, sitting here with you now, who you just said your kids are the most important thing in the world to you, that the enemy could have convinced me that I was unwanted, an accident, a mistake, a burden, and that everyone wished I would just go away. How interesting that we could be experiencing the same thing, in our totally different places.
Hello, baby girl. Happy birthday. You're 32 years old and a little over 8 hours old. All right, I love you. Bye.
So when I think about storytelling, my mind, of course, goes back to the story that started it all. The Garden of Eden, where you have Adam and you have Eve, and they're walking with their Creator. How amazing that must have been. And as a tour guide myself, having worked as a tour guide at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, and now being a tour guide as a storyteller and a musician, guiding people through their own stories, I have been looking at a couple of pillars of storytelling, and the first one being this place of innocence that we're all born into. And I think about my brother and I and the crazy things we would be doing outside if our parents only knew, with hammers and nails and boards and building forts that, could have fallen on us and killed us, and taking tarps and building a little pool by stacking up bricks, and then we'd put the tarp and then we put another brick, and the pool was only like this deep, but we were so proud when we filled it up with the hose that we could splash around in it. You remember that? And this period of innocence where we're learning and we're growing, and for some people it ends earlier than others, and maybe it's a period of innocence simply out of ignorance because we don't realize yet what's happening to us or around us. But we're all born into this place of innocence, and at some point tragedy enters our picture. The serpent slithers into the garden, kicks down the front door, barges in, and we look up and we realize, I'm not in Eden anymore. And so when I wrote this song, it was really my answer to the question, when did you realize you weren't in Eden anymore? And the ability now to use this song to talk about the largest part of many people's stories being this place of contending. When tragedy enters the picture and sends us reeling into the place of contending, which is when we throw our dukes up, we hide behind them, we say, I'm never going to let that happen to me again. And we look around and we say, all is not well in the world, and maybe it never will be again. And unfortunately, when we do not ask questions like, when did I realize I wasn't in Eden anymore? Or what am I going to do with what has happened to me? And we just, put stuff under the rug, it continues to trip us up for the rest of our lives. And I watched a TED Talk called How the Story Shapes the Teller that put it so well. He said that when we don't learn to look at our stories critically, I would add, when we don't invite God into our stories to retell them or to heal parts of them, then our stories become like giant boulders sitting on top of us, keeping us stuck for 10, 20, 40, 50 years, entire lifetimes for some people. And so the opportunity to be able to sit down with my family and ask these questions about when tragedy entered our story and what God would you like us to do with what has happened to us? What would you like me to do with what has happened to me? Is such a gift. And now to have this song, which has become a tool to walk people from a place of contending, surviving, into a place of resolve, restoration, and thriving, is what I love about music and storytelling, and how God will use those gifts as vehicles to heal us, transform us, and bring us into His love, and show us that we were not an accident, we were not a mistake, we were not a burden, and that He really will use every single thing that we have walked through, not only for our own benefit, but for the benefit of those around us as well. So this year, my birthday was October 6th, 2019, and I was turning 32 years old. And it was a Sunday, I was in church, and my mom called to wish me a happy birthday. And so she left a voicemail. And when I got out of church, I walked out and I picked up my phone to listen to the voicemail, and it said something along the lines of, happy birthday, baby, you're 32 years old, Mama loves you. And in that moment I realized, whoa, it has been exactly 16 years past my 16th birthday. And I began to think about those first 16 years versus the second 16 years, and how much, yes, pain there was during that first part, but now how much absolute healing and restoration God has brought since then. And it reminded me of one of the most beautiful moments of my whole life. It was about 5 years ago, and I was in church with my mom to my left. I had my little cousin Ella in my wing here, and we were swaying with the worship music. And we were singing, and I had my eyes closed. And in that moment, out of nowhere, I began to feel the sensation of being rocked in my mother's arms as a newborn. And it almost wasn't like a memory. It was almost like God was letting me go back and experience that again. And like I was actually there. And as I felt the sensation of being rocked as a newborn, this little voice said, "Hey, it wasn't all bad."
Where my life would have been now without you guys, I couldn't even imagine.
Probably a rich bachelor or something.
No, I probably would have been in jail like the rest of my brothers. But you guys are the ones that turned my life around, to be honest with you.
87 to 2003.
Yeah.
So yeah, early 90s to early 2000s. So from around 4 or 5 years old until 14, 15, and then 16. My
It all
16th
erupted.
birthday, October 6, 2003. It's interesting because it was the kind of the climax of it all, you know. But it also was the last incident, wasn't it?
Yeah, it sure was.
2003. So now we're 2020, 17 years later, 16 years later.
Yep.
Was there a specific moment when you realized, okay, maybe I do need help for some of this, and maybe medicine would be a good idea? Or maybe it was over time?
Just over time, mainly.
And over all these years, do you feel like it has really helped you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel it's helped her tremendously. I see a whole different person inside her than I did going through all that.
I would love to hear just your experience of when you first heard it. That was just, 2 months ago? And what that was like to hear the story again after so many years.
It really brings some suicide and depression to light. You never know who you're hurting. You think you're the only one that has pain, and if I eliminate myself from the world, everything will be great. But it's kind of just the opposite.
Yeah.
I always wondered how they would deal with it as they got older. I guess I basically, after things got better, I blocked it out. Like I knew in the back of my head that it had happened, but I always tried to figure out how my kids were going to deal with it going down the road. When I heard that song, I tried to be the macho and not show my feelings. I always have been.
I didn't cry.
And I started tearing up. And then yesterday, like I said, I was driving down the road and I had my buddy in my truck. And I'm always listening to her CD. And that song was going, and he looked over at me and he goes, "Why are you crying?" I go, "Because of this song, if you listen to it." So it meant a lot to me.
I think I just kind of blocked it out. Kind of like a train wreck or something. Like, I remember it. I remember when that it happened, but I don't really want to remember it. It's like it's there, but it's not. You said it kind of brings closure to it and kind of paints a different picture, kind of. Yeah. It's good. I like it. Did a good job.
You have any thoughts about having it down into the form of a song?
Just that I didn't really realize how much it hurt you guys, hurt you. About how you were standing out there and in the rain, your hands were shaking, and he came racing in, and
Yeah, because you were inside. There's no way for you to. So this is actually a way for you to see it from different angles.
yeah.
Yeah.
Then when I found you on the bed, basically unconscious, just freaked me out. I don't even know who called the paramedics. I was screaming for somebody to call them.
How does it feel knowing that other people will hear your story when they hear this song?
Maybe bring closure with them too.
I look at it this way: if we can help anybody that's dealing with mental illness, I'm all for it. Because when it came right down to it, I was lost. and be able to figure things out like we had to. If I can make one person's life a little bit easier to figure out mental illness, I'm all about it. Don't ever turn your back on people that have got issues, because 99% of the time it's not their fault, and they always feel alone when they need somebody.
If you need help, get it. Don't push things back on the back burner.
You know, you just gotta let people know that they're not the only ones out there.
I remember singing at a local fair when a young girl I knew from my time as a chaplain in our local juvenile detention center walked up and said, "I heard your voice and I just followed it." She looked at me through tear-stained eyes hidden behind her short black bangs, and as I wrapped her up in a hug, I said, "God loves you so much that He sent my voice to find you right where you are, so that you would follow it and find your way back to Him." It wasn't entertainment that her heart needed. It was love. My prayer is that our story has met you right where you are. That's what love does. It meets us right where we are. But true love does more than that. It doesn't just leave us there. And as I prayed about you, the person that would be watching this, I asked God what His message to you would be. My heart was impressed with this simple reply: if you need help, get it. Stop sweeping things under the rug. And if you see someone hurting around you, help them get help. If you know someone who is stuck, share this video story with them. Let them know that they're not the only one. My hope with this film was to tell a great story that would change lives. But as I took it to God in prayer, I heard Holy Spirit whisper, "I haven't asked you to tell a great story. I've asked you to tell your story." And just like that, I remember, He is God and I am not. Do you ever feel trapped under the weight of your story? Held back by what you've done or what's been done to you? Wondering if you are the sum total of the things that have happened to you? Wondering if you really are the names you've been called or the labels that have been put on you? Well, the pain, depression, anxiety, the inner turmoil and chaos, the constant barrage of accusations that fill your mind and torment your soul, that might be what once was, but it doesn't have to be what always will be. If you've lost all hope, I have some good news for you. God is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. He is found in those uncomfortable places of uncertainty, insecurity, and despair. He is often found in the in-between, the place in between what once was and what someday will be, in the sacred space between what has been and what is still yet to come. It can be a lonely place, but you don't have to walk alone. Be encouraged. This is where God does His mightiest work. So, when did you realize you weren't in Eden anymore? When was that moment you looked around and realized that in fact, all is not well in the world and maybe it never will be again? In the strength of God's love and with the help of a counselor or spiritual advisor, the invitation is to go back to that place and let God restore and heal those broken places. We go back in order to move forward, and we do this by asking God what He would like to do with what has happened to us. Today, you have a choice. Stay pinned under your story like a giant boulder, or finally stop hiding from your healing. If you feel like you've reached a breaking point, then you're in a very good place. This is where transformation occurs, when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change. That's where miracles happen. You might be thinking, that sounds great, Nicole. In fact, too good to be true. But how? I encourage you to visit NicoleUnser.com/resources for ideas on how to move forward. It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. And for this reason, I kneel before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth derives its name. I pray that out of his glorious riches he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your heart through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power, together with all the Lord's holy people, to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. And now, to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we can ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. To him be the glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, forever and ever. Amen.